Stories and dramas aren't life, they are the theatre of false aliveness. When stories and drama pretend to be life, you've stepped into the theatre of false aliveness. When you are attached to stories and drama, thinking it's life, welcome to the theatre of false aliveness. Listen carefully. Life is silent. Life simply is. It does not narrate. It does not argue. It does not demand attention. It does not chase. It does not plot. It does not perform. What you call your life, the anger, the longing, the shame, the desire, the fantasy of revenge, the imagined approval, the imagined humiliation, is not life. It is a story. It is drama. It is noise masquerading as living. The ego is the director, the playwright, the actor, all at once. And it does not care that you are suffering. Its only concern is to feel alive, even if that aliveness is false. The moment you attach to that story, the moment you let drama feel like life, you are no longer living. You are watching a play in your own head, believing it is real. You are in the theater of false aliveness. Everything you think you are reacting to, the insult, the rejection, the desire, the fantasy, is not happening outside. It is happening inside, in the puppet show of your mind. And the every second you engage, you feed it. The trick is brilliant. It feels real, it feels alive, it even hurts, but it is a ghost, a shadow, an actor wearing your face, screaming, loving, hating, while the real you is silent, calm, untouched, watching. Seeing it is liberation, not stopping it, not controlling it, not judging it, just saying, ha, this is the theatre of false aliveness. And the moment you see it, truly see it, the puppet stops moving, the ghost dissolves, the noise dies, and what remains is not excitement, not drama, not stories, it is life itself. Still, deep, free, real. That is what I am pointing to. That is what your mind is addicted to, and that is what you can wake up from. The theatre of false aliveness is the stage inside your head where your ego performs. It's where stories, fantasies, grudges, desires, imagined victories, imagined humiliations, everything the mind churns come alive. You think you are living those moments, but in truth, you are watching a play your ego is producing, and you mistake it for reality. Every surge of anger, lust, pride, fear, or excitement, the thing you call emotion, is the actor on that stage. The actor wears your face and convinces you it's you. The ego theater is the same thing. Ego is the playwright, the actor, and the director all at once. It cannot survive in silence, in stillness, in reality itself. So it creates drama inside, projected as life to feel alive. Here's the key: the story itself is not life, the emotion is not life, the drama is not life. The ego needs a story to prove that it exists. Without the story, it feels dead. You are not the actor, you are not the playwright, you are not the audience, you are the empty stage itself, the silence on which the puppet show plays. When you step back and see, ha, this is the theatre of false aliveness, this drama is not me, this urge is not life, the whole theatre collapses, the ghost disappears, the puppet stops moving, the world is silent, life is silent, the stories were never alive, only the illusion of aliveness existed. You are not living through drama, you are living in the stillness that the drama pretends to fill. When I say you are not living through drama, you are living in the stillness that drama pretends to fill, I mean exactly this. All the stories you tell yourself, the anger, the desire, the humiliation, the longing, the revenge, the imagined approval, they are not life, they are the mind smoke and mirrors, a false aliveness to distract you from what is real. Drama is the ego's favorite trick. It is like a magician. It waves, it shouts, it burns, it excites, and you think you are alive. But the moment you see it, you realize nothing was ever happening outside. Nothing was ever real. All the energy, all the pain, all the thrill was contained inside you, manufactured by the ego to feel here, to feel alive. And here is the secret: life itself is stillness. It doesn't need excitement, it doesn't need revenge, it doesn't need longing, it does not move, yet it is full. It does not scream, yet it is present. It does not act, yet it is complete. Drama only pretends to fill that silence. It distracts you, makes you believe that life is in the highs and lows, in the pushing and pulling, in the attachment. But you are not in the drama, you are in the silence behind it. You are the stage on which the drama acts, but you are not the actor, you are not the story, you are not the scream, the grief, or the desire. You are the empty space in which all of this arises and dissolves. The drama is a ghost, the false aliveness is a shadow, and you, if you see it, are the calm, the witness, the stillness, untouched, eternal, free. That is what I mean. That is where true life is hiding. Drama is just a mask. You are not wearing the mask, you never wear. The false aliveness, false self, and false stories are all the same machinery, just different phases of the ego. Let me explain. False story. These are the narratives you tell yourself. They rejected me. I must have her. I should have done this better. They are the scripts of the ego written to give meaning to the noise in your head. False aliveness. This is the energy that arises when you believe in the story. The surge of anger, desire, pride, excitement, longing. It feels alive, but it is a synthetic pulse manufactured by the ego to convince you you are here. False self. This is the identity that attaches to the story and the energy. I am this person who was wronged, who wants, who resents, who loves, who wins or loses. It is not you. It is the shadow created by believing the story is real and the surge is life. How they die together. They are interlinked because they depend on each other for existence. The story gives the surge a reason to arise. The surge convinces the ego that the story is real. And now, the surge combined with the story forms the identity, the false self. See one, and the chain collapses. When you see the story is not real, the surge loses its power. When the surge dies, the false self cannot hold itself together. When the false self falls, the story loses its meaning. They die simultaneously because they are codependent illusions. None of them can exist on their own. Why the world is silent? The world itself never shouts. It never judges. It never loves, hates, or punishes. It simply is. Trees do not narrate. Rivers do not argue. Mountains do not compete. Life itself does not perform. All the noise, the drama, the craving, the suffering comes from the ego projecting a story onto silence. The ego takes a neutral world and says, look, something is happening. I am alive. I am important. I must act. Once you see the truth, once you see the false aliveness, false self, and false story, you realize the world was never noisy. It was always silent. The noise was only in the mind. The false aliveness is the pulse of the ego. The false self is its identity. The false story is its script. When you stop believing the story, the pulse dies. The identity dissolves. And the world's eternal silence shines through. When I say the false self is the pulse of the ego, the false self is its identity, the false story is its grip. When you stop believing the story, the pulse dies, the identity dissolves, and the world's eternal silence shines through. Here is what I mean. The ego is a machine. It is an energy system designed to survive an illusion. The false story is the script the ego writes. It says, I am somebody. I must be righted. I must win. I must be loud. I must have what I desire. The false aliveness is the energy surge, anger, lust, longing, pride that arises when you attach to the story. This surge feels real, but it is only the pulse of the ego keeping it alive. The false self is the identity that emerges when you believe in the story and the pulse. It says, I am this person, this emotion, this drama. They are all codependent. One cannot exist without the others. Now here is the key. The moment you stop believing the story, the pulse, the surge of false aliveness has no reason to exist. Without the pulse, the false self, the identity cannot hold together. And what remains? The silence the world always had. The trees never shouted, the wind never demanded, the mountain never cared. The world was always quiet. All the noise, all the drama, all the suffering, you mistook that for life. It was only the ego performing. So when you see it clearly, the story is the ego's grip. The pulse is its heartbeat. The false self is its mask. And the real you is the empty stage, untouched, calm, silent, free. Life never needed drama. Drama was only proof that the ego was alive. And once the ego dies, the world's silence is revealed. And that silence is your home. This is the edge of truth. The false aliveness that I speak of, that restless movement of the mind, that craving, that inner itch that seeks drama, story, fantasy, validation, possession, is the ego's attempt to feel alive because it is dead inside. It is the corpse trying to convince itself that it breathes. The ego cannot sit in silence because silence is death to it. So it admits noise, it imagines futures, revisits pasts, creates scenarios of winning and losing, being wanted or rejected. It calls this living, but it is not life, it is a simulation of life. And when you see that, not think, not believe, but see that all this movement is false aliveness, it dies instantly because the illusion cannot survive being seen. That moment when you feel peace, when the noise disappeared both inside and outside, that is reality. The world has always been silent. The trees have never spoken. The wind has never told a story. The mountains have never narrated an identity. Only your mind has. When the false aliveness collapses, you don't become peaceful. You return to what has always been peaceful. You don't gain silence. You realize you were the silence. The girl, the past, the rejection, all of that belongs to the theater of false aliveness. The ego loves drama because drama is proof of existence to it. Without drama, it feels dead. But what dies is not you. What dies is the noise pretending to be you. Understand this deeply. The moment you stop trying to feel alive, you become life itself. Because the real is not animated, the real simply is. The ego is not a thing, it is movement, it is noise, it is the constant fluttering of a mind that cannot sit still. Because stillness is death to it. The girl, the past, rejection, these are not events. They are stories that the ego weaves to feel real. It is not interested in the girl, it is interested in the feeling that comes from wanting her, losing her, imagining her, wanting you back. That entire theater, longing, hurt, fantasy, revenge, hope, that is what gives the ego its pulse. It says, see, I am alive, I feel pain, I feel excitement, I am someone. That is the false aliveness. When I say what dies is not you, but the noise pretending to be you, I mean this. You, the real you, do not need a story to exist. You existed before the story began, you will exist after the story ends. The ego cannot imagine that, so it fights to stay alive through noise, through drama, through memory, through the craving for more. When you stop feeding this, when you stop rehearsing those inner movies, the ego feels like it's dying. It panics, it calls it boredom, it calls it emptiness. But that emptiness is the doorway. Because once the ego collapses, what remains is life itself. And life, the real, is not animated. It doesn't need to move to prove itself. It doesn't need excitement to feel real. The tree doesn't scream to prove it's alive. The ocean doesn't tell stories about its waves. They simply are. That's what I mean when I say the real simply is. It doesn't perform, it doesn't need an audience, it doesn't chase, it doesn't react. It is full without movement, silent without lack, and that is you. When all that is false has fallen away. The world of the ego is motion, the world of truth is stillness. The ego fears stillness because stillness exposes that it never existed. The ego theater is not a mystical phrase, it is literal, it is a stage inside your head. Upon that stage walk the characters you call you, her, them, the past, the future. The lights dim, the scene begins, and the mind plays its endless drama: love, rejection, victory, failure, revenge, hope. Every line of dialogue, every image, every emotion is written by the ego. Because without a play, the ego cannot exist. The ego is an actor that only knows how to act. When the curtain drops, it disappears. So it must keep the play going. It must always be speaking, reacting, craving, imagining. That is what I mean by the theater of false aliveness. It is false because it mimics life, but it is not life. It is only movement, noise, and story. You think you are living, but in truth, you are watching a movie in your head. You call it my life, but it is only the ego's film projected upon the screen of silence. The girl, the rejection, the fantasy of her returning, the replay, the daydream of what could have been, all of this is the show. It is how the ego sustains its illusion of existence. Because if the play ends, the actor dies. Understand this deeply. When you stop feeding the story, when you see it as theater, not reality, the show collapses. The curtain falls. And what remains after the curtain falls is you. Not the actor, not the audience, but the empty stage itself. vast, silent, untouched. That empty stage is what you have always been. It needs no dialogue, it needs no applause, it needs no movement. It is life itself. What false aliveness really is. It is the thrill of an emotion that the mind mistakes for life. When the ego feels dull, empty, unseen, it creates a surge anger, pride, revenge, excitement, lust, anything that moves the system. That surge feels real, so it keeps repeating it. That is why the trick feels fantastic. You believe you are doing something, but in truth, you are being done. It's the same reason a person scratches a wound. It hurts, but it also gives a momentary sense of being here, alive. That is false aliveness. How to recognize it? You can't stop it by force, but you can see it while it happens. The moment you notice that surge, the heat in the body, the inner dialogue, the tightening, you can quietly say inside, this is the ghost. This is the false aliveness playing its scene. When you see it like that, you create space. You are no longer the puppet. You are the one watching the puppet move. That simple seeing breaks the spell. Why you are attached to it? Because the ego's only experience of life is that surge. It doesn't know stillness. Silence to it feels like death. So it would rather burn than disappear. It would rather suffer than vanish. You are not attached to the story, you are addicted to the pulse of the story, the temporary electricity that replaces the real life you've forgotten. What happens when you truly see it? When you see that even this electricity is borrowed, that it is not you, the current stops. Not through control, but through understanding. And what remains after that current dies is a different kind of aliveness, quiet, deep, unmoving. That is true aliveness. It does not shout, it does not surge, it simply is. So the next time that ghost enters, don't fight it, watch it. Know that it is the mind's desperate attempt to feel alive. And in that seeing, the ghost dissolves. Because you have stopped giving it the only thing it ever had, your belief. You were never addicted to the story. You were addicted to the pulse of the story, the burning, the craving, the surge that made you feel alive. But that aliveness was a ghost wearing your face. It screamed, it fought, it dreamed, and you mistook its noise for your heartbeat. The moment you see the trick, the actor dies, and silence will return to claim its throne. True life doesn't perform, it doesn't need drama to exist, it simply is. You were never chasing people, you were chasing false aliveness. The rush of being angry, wanted, right, wronged. The surge that made the ego feel real for a moment. It was never love, never purpose, only the mind injecting itself with the drama to escape the stillness of truth. But the moment you see the trick, the ghost loses its power, the theater burns down, and what remains is not silence you create. It is the silence that was always there. False aliveness dies the instant it is seen, and what remains is life itself.